Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to 75 South Gardening. In today's video, I'm going to show you all how you can grow bell peppers from these tiny little seeds into beautiful homegrown peppers. The best way to germinate your bell pepper seeds is to simply direct sow them into a seed starting mix. Now, they may take up to 3 weeks before they germinate and come up out of the soil. These were planted on the 10th. Today is the 23rd, and as you can see, they already have their first set of leaves. So what I'll be doing today is thinning these out into my 6-cell trays. And I have a video on how I like to thin my seedlings, and I'll leave a link below in the description. When it comes to pruning your bell pepper plants, you want to make sure that you pay close attention to how your plant is actually growing. Some pepper plants will grow bushy naturally, while others, like the one you see here, will only grow one single stem going straight up. So this one will be tall and slender if I don't prune it. And to prune it, what you want to do is simply cut the top after the first 3 sets of true leaves right here, just like that. So what I'm going to do is go through each one and cut the tops of the one that only have one single branch, just like that. But you want to pay close attention because some of them already have 2 to 3 branches up top. This one here is now complete. All of them have been topped. They have the first 3 set of true leaves. This one isn't tall enough yet, and the one here isn't tall enough yet. So once they get to that 3rd set of leaves, I'll go ahead and top those. But just for an example, if you take a look at the ones here, you'll notice this one already has 2 branches up top, and I've never topped these. Same thing here. You pay close attention to the middle, you will notice there's a branch here and here. As for this one right here, this one also has 2 branches. So if they've already started to branch out, I won't top them. But if they have one single branch in the middle, this one here has 3, y'all. And I also have a few aphids. Now to cure aphids, or to get rid of aphids, I like to use ladybugs. Now that I have each one of them pruned, these will now grow back as a short, bushy pepper plant. Now this process may take up to 2 weeks, and once they grow back, they will grow out of each node of the fan leaves. And if you take a closer look here, we already have growth starting here and here, even down at the bottom. You're also going to notice your flowers are going to start growing. These little round buds are your flowers. And what's going to happen, as they get bigger, they're going to hang over and open up. And once they open up and the bees get to it, they will be pollinated, and you will have a small pepper growing afterwards. So what you want to do is pick these off once they hang over until your plant reaches at least 15 inches. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about pruning your bell pepper plant. The first 4 plants in this front row haven't been pruned. So what I'm going to do is show you how I like to prune my bell pepper plants for maximum production. And all you're going to need is a pair of sharp scissors or pruners. Now I usually prune my bell pepper plants inside while they're still in my solo cups That way, by the time they get that tall, they've already started to bush out, like the ones in the back over there, and these two behind the second one. All of these are brand new plants except for the two with the tomato cages and this roasted red in front here. So what I'm going to do now is adjust my camera, give you guys a closer look, and show you how to prune your bell pepper plant. What you want to do is first locate your plant's main stem and prune after the first 4 nodes. This is the main stem right here. Now a node is simply each corner in between the fan leaves. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So we have 6 nodes. Now since these two in the front are shorter than the ones in the back, I'm simply going to prune them at the top node. And the way you do this is you simply cut here, just like this. That's it. I'm going to do the same thing here, just like that. Okay, so now that you have them pruned, the next thing that I like to do is simply remove any lower leaves that will come in contact with the ground. So you want to cut these off just like that. And you can throw these into your compost pile, or you can put them under the mulch and they'll break down by the end of the summer. But I'm going to throw them in the compost pile. Now that you have everything pruned, all you have to do is wait until they start growing back. This usually takes up to about 2 weeks. Sometime in a week you can have a nice branchy growth from your plant. But this one here, I decided to not prune because it already has 2 main branches up top in the shape of a Y. Now what pruning does, it stops the plant's vertical growth from the main stem, which sends the energy down out to each node for branchy growth. And when it grows back, it should look something like this one here. And it's going to have anywhere from 2 to 3 branches on top, and the rest will come through each node throughout the summer. If you ever get a plant like this from the nursery, there's 2 in 1 pot, don't pull it apart. Just soak it in some water. This is just peat moss. It should come apart pretty easy. And it's just that simple. Now I'll let these soak for another 5 to 10 minutes, and these will come right apart without any problem. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. I should be able to pull these apart without any problem. It's just that easy. No roots broken, and these are ready to transplant. Now that I have them separated, I can go ahead and transplant my bell pepper plant. Now usually I'd add an all-purpose along with my bone meal, but this is my soil mix that I made in my Gardeners for Beginners video, so it's already loaded with all-purpose, so I won't be adding any of that. What I will be adding is just a little bone meal. Now this particular bone meal also has nitrogen and calcium. You need lots of calcium for your tomatoes, peppers, and melons. So I'll be adding just a little bit of this. Just like that. And I'll just mix it in as good as I can. I don't want to dig too far or I might damage the marigold there. I'm going to sit in like that. Cover it up. And that's it. Now, you don't have to use all-purpose. I've grown bell peppers using tomato and vegetable fertilizer. I've also grown it using garden tone. Now, if you choose to use all-purpose and you don't see this specific brand, don't worry about it. You can always find Dr. Earth in your local nursery, and they all do the same thing. Now that I have it transplanted, all I have to do is add a little water. And that should be it. Now for those of you that want to know how to make that soil mix, just go to my Gardening for Beginners video and check it out. It seems to be doing well. Everything up here is planted in that same mix. And there's bell peppers everywhere. Now these also haven't been watered with a liquid fertilizer yet, but I'll start them on that next week and see if it makes a difference. As far as right now, they're doing pretty good. Now these 4 in the front are the 4 that I pruned earlier in the video. And it's been about a week and they're growing back pretty good. They're all growing at their own rate. Look at this one here. Now this is the one that I decided not to prune, because like I said, it already had 2 branches up top. So I'm gonna leave that one like that. Now let's talk about spacing. When growing pepper plants, you want 12 to 18 inches in between each plant. This way they're not competing for space above or below ground. Each variety is going to require a different amount of spacing. I'm going to say that again. Each variety is going to require a different amount of spacing. Some like to grow tall and slender, while others like to grow wide and bushy. In my raised bed here, my plants are spaced 18 inches in between each plant and 24 inches in between the rows. Now in the center, I have zinnias. I also have marigolds to attract my pollinators, and this random tomato plant here that I may end up pulling later. Now let's talk a little bit about supporting your pepper plant. Now in my containers, I like to support my bell pepper plants with the small tomato cages. But you can also use bamboo sticks like I have here on this tomato plant. And I simply zip tie them at the top. Now I've even used sticks from the yard, as long as you have something to support the weight of the fruit and to keep them from breaking and tipping over due to high winds. Now it has been about 2.5 weeks since I pruned these earlier in the video, and they're starting to look pretty good. Now in my raised beds, I'll be using a method called Florida weaving. And I'm going to go back down to the bottom and show you exactly what I mean by that. Alright, what I'm going to do now is demonstrate the Florida weaving method. This method has been used for years by farmers to support their bell peppers, but mostly their tomato plants. And what you're going to need to do this is cotton twine and some wooden stakes. Now, I wouldn't use the bamboo sticks because sometimes, depending on where you stay in your soil, they may not go in the ground too easy. But with the wooden stakes, you can knock them down on the ground with a hammer without them breaking. So the first thing you want to do is tie up the twine to your stake. Now, every 2 plants, I have a stake. And what you want to do once you have it tied is go in front of the first plant, behind the second one, just like that, and you want to wrap around your stake. Now that you have that done, you want to go around the opposite side. So now I'm going to come around the front of this one and the back of this one and wrap around my stake once again. And it's just that simple. Now, as this plant grows taller and taller, I'll just add another layer of twine as it grows up. So I'm going to get this cut and tied off, and then I'll work my way up to the top of the plant as it grows. Now, once you've completed the weaving process, it should look something like this. All you're doing is going around the opposite side each time you loop around your stake. So once you come in front of this plant, you're just going to go behind that one, and come in front of that one, go behind that one, loop around, come back in front of that one, behind this one, and so on until you finish the whole bed. You don't have to do it in sections. I just did that as an example for the video. Now let's talk a little bit about watering. Pepper plants like to have moist soil at all times. If you're letting your pepper plants dry out too long to the point where the leaves are wilting, that could be one of the main causes of blossom end rot. Now, most people are going to tell you that it's a calcium deficiency, but that's not always the case. Now, if underwatering isn't the cause of it, and you're keeping it moist at all times, then you could add calcium to your soil by getting Tums or going to Dollar Tree and grabbing some of these. Now, each one of these tablets contains 1,000 milligrams of calcium. And what I like to do is crush it up into a powder form. Just put it right here at the base of the plant and water it in. Now, if you don't know when to water your bell pepper plant, just take your finger, move your mulch to the side, and stick it down into the soil. Now, if it isn't moist, you want to go ahead and water your bell pepper plant. Simple as that. Underwatering can cause blossom end rot. And right here in the front, these are the 4 that I pruned earlier in the video back in May. And as you can see, they've started producing. Now, I can't do any hand pollination videos up here because, as you can see, the bees have beat me to it. Once you pollinate your flowers, they close up like that, they turn brown and fall off, and a few days later you will see a bell pepper come behind it like that one. All of these are closed, so the bees have beat me to it. So what I'm going to do is go over when and how to harvest first. Then I'll go down to the main cage and we'll talk about hand pollination. Now, as you can see here, this is a roasted red bell pepper. Now it has started to turn red. Same thing over here. This one is almost fully red. Now when harvesting your bell peppers, you don't have to wait until they turn fully red. And if you leave them on too long after they've turned red, they will also start to rot. So once they're fully red, you can go ahead and pull them off, or they'll start to rot like the one here. Now since this one has already started turning, I can go ahead and pull that one off, and it will finish ripening inside. Same thing here with the roasted red. And that's pretty much it for harvesting. You don't have to wait until it turns this color all the way, and if you leave it on too long, it'll start to rot. Also, if you notice any wrinkling around the top of it, that's just sun scald. You have to remember, these are tropical plants and they don't like the heat. So what I'm going to do right now is go down to the main cage, and we're going to talk about hand pollination. Alright, so I'm down in the main cage, and as you can see, there are plenty of peppers here. They're close to being ready to harvest, especially the white bell peppers that I have. They're everywhere. Now I do have fresh flowers down here to go ahead and show you how I hand pollinate them. It's pretty simple. I have one right here. So all you want to do is just barely touch it like this. And once you do that, you'll see that pollen fly out. Let's see if I can get a better view here. I'm going to replay that part in slow motion so you can actually see the pollen fly out. But it's just that simple to hand pollinate your peppers. And after a few days, your flower will close up like that, and behind it you'll see a small pepper growing. So that's pretty much it for when and how to harvest your pepper plants. Remember, you don't have to let it turn its full color. And another thing that people ask all the time is, are they going to get any bigger? Once they have started to turn colors, they're not going to get any bigger than what you see. Now let's talk a little bit about the hand pollination. You can use the vibrating toothbrush, or you can use your hand and just simply shake the plant, just like you would do your tomato plants. Now if you're growing marigolds in your garden, always remember to pull these off and harvest your seeds. Now if you don't know how, I have a video, and I'll put a link in the description of how to do that. Now, since we know how to harvest, how to hand pollinate, let's talk about how to store your peppers. What's going on, y'all? Today is October the 10th, and as you can see, these are my bell peppers from the back porch. Now I had to relocate them down here because it gets way too hot up there, and what that does is stress the plant, turns all the leaves yellow, and it stops producing fruit. So what I'm going to be doing today is harvesting a few of these so that the new flowers can start producing fruit. And I'm going to show you a few methods that I like to use to store my bell peppers. Now these over here aren't quite ready yet. So what I'm going to do is harvest most of the white ones over here because they are starting to turn yellow. Now that I have the peppers harvested, I can go ahead and take them in for storage if I wanted to. Now you don't have to be in a rush to take your peppers inside and store them. Sometimes I simply like to leave these outside for about 2 weeks in a shaded area, and they do just fine. Also, if you've harvested any green peppers, like the one you see here, and you've noticed that it has started turning colors, that's because there's no such thing as a green bell pepper. The varieties that they sell as green bell peppers, they just take a little longer to ripen. I'm starting to think the same thing about these white ones because most of them have started to turn yellow. My favorite way to store peppers is to simply chop them up and throw them in the freezer. You want to make sure that once you put them in the freezer bags, you just move them around loosely and lay them flat just like that in the freezer. So when it's time to use them, they're easier to break apart. You don't have to throw out the whole bag. Now there's 2 more ways that I like to store my peppers. One is to place them somewhere inside where it stays cool at all times. Now this particular room stays anywhere from 70 to 73 degrees. And these were picked about 3 days ago and they're almost fully ripened. The same thing works for your tomatoes. You can also store these at the bottom of your refrigerator in the crisper, but I wouldn't recommend leaving them in there for over a week or they may rot.